This episode is rated M for mature audiences. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect those of the PFC Entertainment Network or any of the affiliates that make this show possible.
This is the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network.
I'm Jason Clouse. And over the course of my life, I've done a lot of different things, and I've worn a lot of different hats. But this may be my greatest endeavor yet. On this show, we are going to focus on life. We are going to focus on the basic fundamentals. We are going to focus on the silver lining. Because no matter what happens, no matter what is thrown our way, there is a silver lining. There is a lesson to be learned. Sometimes we just have to look a little bit harder, a little bit deeper for it. That's what this show is all about. Sometimes it's going to be rough, sometimes it's going to be raw, sometimes it may be hard to listen to, but it's something that you need to hear. This just got real.
And now, the Pure Fury Creations Entertainment Network presents its flagship show, the Clouse to the Heart podcast. Here is your host, Jason Clouse.
And we welcome you to a very special edition of the Clouse to the Heart podcast. We're actually live streaming this across 3 different platforms. You may be watching us through either the Clouse to the Heart Facebook page, riverside.fm, or our channel over on YouTube. Regardless of what realm you are watching this live, we certainly appreciate you taking time out of your evening to give this a watch, to give this a listen, or if you're picking this up later on during the replay, as it were, on the RSS feed. Regardless of when you're tuning in, we certainly do appreciate that. But with this being live, you have the opportunity to correspond in real time. If I do have the feed up on Facebook right now, but you also have the capability, if you're going through riverside.fm, you should have the capability to correspond through a text message type of system through Riverside that will pop up on my screen. So I will keep checking in periodically to see if there's anything in there that needs to be addressed, or if you have a question or a comment on something, because make no mistake about it, I have a variety of things that I'm going to touch on. This is not going to be a structured format in terms of it's not going to be a structured format in terms of what you may be used to if you listen into the regular podcast feed. And the other thing is if it sounds weird, it's because I'm using these AirPod things instead of my regular headset, because something in here is causing interference with the headset, and like I can hear it, but I don't know necessarily if it comes through or not, and I didn't want to run that risk here tonight. So we're just going the AirPod route. Plus, it gives me a lot more wiggle room. Because make no mistake about it, folks, I am, how do we say, fired up. Now, and I'm also going to tell you, You are coming into this thing at the 11 o'clock hour on a Saturday night. Okay. And if you think things get a little raw, a little polarizing on Tuesdays on the regular show, all I'm saying is if there's young ones within earshot, you're probably going to want to remove them from that area or pick this up when they're not around. Um, this is actually an idea that has been rolling around my head for a little bit. This was actually an idea that Nikki Falsoni had back when she was able to be on the show, which seems like forever ago. But um, let me do a quick shout out to Nicole real quick, because I know there are people to this day ask about her and if she's coming back, when she's coming back. The simple fact of the matter it has been always, and it continues to be a scheduling thing. My schedule, her schedule does not line up. And on top of things that are going on with me personally, things that she's got going on personally, like it's that door is always open for her to come back when she's able to be available. You know what I mean? It's not like she got fired or anything like that, or that she was removed unceremoniously. Not the case at all. But we are thinking about her and her family, and we are sending our best wishes. We are sending our thoughts and hoping that everything is going good with them, all the way over in the fine metropolis that is Newark, Ohio. So, all right. I got a number of things I'm going to touch on here. I'm just not sure what order I'm going to touch them on because, again, there is no net. There is no, like, this is as live as it can be. But I've got some shit that I want to talk about. I've got some things that are on my mind that's what this platform is about. It's about utilizing the voice. I found a couple of different memes and sayings this week that I was going to incorporate, trying to maintain something of a theme here, but at the same time, it's not just going, there's a lot of, we're using tonight as an opportunity to hit the release valve. Okay. And while the overall theme of the show maintains one where you can draw some degree of inspiration or motivation from, like, that's what brought me to the dance, and I'm not steering away from that. I'm just a little bit more aggressive in my approach nowadays. And why is that? Why are all we pulled out all the stops, as they say? Why is that? Because I don't really feel like I need to censor myself for anybody. And if you are tuning in, if you are taking time out of your day and you are tuning into something that I do, I owe it to you to give you the most authentic version of myself, whether you like me as a person or not, because I ain't seeking you out. You came to me. And actually, I'm going to use that as the catalyst for the first thing that we're going to talk about. And then we'll focus more on the more positive side of things. And I appreciate the people that are tuning in here. Our good friends here at Riverside.fm are giving me a run as to who is watching on what platform. So that's very beneficial. So now I know where I got to look towards in order to get some sort of correspondence going here. Um, Again, I do have the Facebook thing up on my phone, but through the computer here, this gives me a rundown who's watching where. We do have one on YouTube, three on Facebook, and it looks like two have logged into Riverside. So welcome to everybody. And I did, as a programming note, send out the invite link to um, the other podcasters here on the PFC network. They may or may not be jumping in here from time to time throughout the course of this thing. They do have that open invitation to come on here, and I told them if there's anything you want to talk about, this is the night to do it. I do not give a crap. Um, Nothing's off the table. Whatever you wanna talk about, if there's something you've always wanted to know from me, um, let me know. Send me your questions. I do not give a shit. Nothing is off the table tonight because I it just isn't a thing. You got something on your mind? Let's talk about it. You know what I mean? Now, I want to talk. The first thing I guess I'll do, I'll focus on the less than ideal, and then we'll make the transition to more motivational thing here. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a life hack. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on something, especially for those who are involved in any kind of entertainment entity, sport entity. If you are approached to be a part of anything, let me save you a tremendous amount of time, effort, and aggravation, and by telling you, do some goddamn research on who is presenting the invitation. I say that to say because I ran into a situation earlier today where I I was met with a very much a less than ideal situation. The problem was it wasn't presented in that way. I was invited to be a guest on another wrestling podcast. And I have gone back and forth over the last few hours as to how deep I was going to go into this, um, because I don't want to use my platform to boost the awareness of another entity that I, number one, at the bottom line, on a professional level, have no respect for. On a personal level, I think is a nothing short of just a giant piece of shit, if I can be honest. I was approached earlier this past week about being a guest on another podcast, wrestling related. Um, they had seen the Fatal Four Way on ONTV through YouTube, and they reached out and asked if I would be interested in joining the show. They said that they had done some research on me, and they were aware of a little bit of what my story was or what my involvement with the wrestling business and now what I'm doing here with podcasting. Um, so I mean, I was all excited. I'm looking at it as a networking thing, you know what I mean? Like making them aware of what we're doing and vice versa. Like I was all into this. A half an hour into the recording, I could see where things were going south, and I mean with the quickness. And I also got to see firsthand just how fucking ignorant people are. Just fundamentally ignorant. By definition, lack of intelligence, lack of understanding, lack of knowledge. I got hung up on a word. And when I say that, anybody who knows me on any level knows what that means. And if you do know me on a personal level, you know immediately what that does to me, right? So I stuttered, and wouldn't you know it, it was on my name. And there was two dudes, one uh, the more professional of the two, and the other one thinks he's funny. The other one thinks he is the second coming of Kevin Hart or something. Um, just you could tell right at, before we hit the record button, this is a very sarcastic individual. I picked up on it immediately. There is a fine line between being sarcastic and being an outright prick. Fine line. This motherfucker crossed it. And didn't just crossed it, and then kept going with it. Um, Instead of acknowledging what an uncomfortable situation I was immediately thrown in, this peon is going to use this as a catalyst to try to be funny at my expense, to the point to where he started like mimicking how I stuttered my name. Okay. Now this is being recorded for a fucking show. I respectfully requested that this please stop. I can't help it. You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing right now? What are we doing right now? It very quickly deteriorated to the point to where I said, I stopped the show. I stopped their show, and I was like, look, I want no part of this. This is not what I signed up for. And do not air that episode. You do not have my permission to air that episode. And if it drops, if I get wind that this sees the light of day, things are not going to go good for you. Straight up. Because not only were they recording from their side, when I realized this was what was happening, I recorded myself telling them they do not have my permission to drop this episode with me in it. Now I'm going to tell you something. And this is the only thing I'll say about it. People who have an opportunity, people who have a platform like this, there is a low-key responsibility if you want your show to be taken seriously. Because what happened earlier this afternoon was a classic example of people who really, at the end of the day, there are people who are meant for this, and then there are people who are not. With a platform like this comes a lot of power, comes a lot of responsibility. You have open air to do virtually anything you want, but you best damn well better be prepared to stand up for what it is that you're putting out there. If you do not have that within your inner makeup, get the fuck out. That show is not going to last, just based on the absolute despicable premise of the whole thing. And yeah, it bothered me. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it didn't. But what it also did was motivate me. And anybody that slams me up against the wall, backs me into a corner like that, history has shown it has not boded well for the opposition. Because here's the cool thing about me, and this is the one thing, this is the biggest difference from people who will say, oh yeah, I knew him back then, or I knew him when he was this. I ain't that no more. And that's the biggest problem people are having a fucking problem with. Because here's the secret. I simply do not care. And when you get an individual who does not care, that is the most dangerous individual to deal with. There's nothing to lose. Because this network on which you're watching, this is an extension of who I am, of what I am, and more importantly, this is a continuing homage to a man who I would give anything to be here with me again. For situations like that, because I'm here to tell you, if Jeff had been with me when all that shit went on today, this story has a very different ending. Very different ending. And I don't pull no punches. And that's a contrast to what people may remember me as, because I would take everything and anything. I don't do that shit no more. Life's too short. Life's too short. That's the one thing you will continually hear me say. Life's too short. This ain't worth it, man. You got to pick your battles, and this ain't it. And I will actually use this as the catalyst into our first more motivational topic. There's two things you should never waste your time on. Things that don't matter, and people who think that you don't matter. And I feel like that's just been kind of my whole MO with this whole thing is I don't have time to waste, if I'm being honest with you, if I'm being fully transparent with you. I don't have time to waste. I just don't. And that's all I'm going to say about it. But let me tell you what I have learned. One of the most damning life lessons I have learned. Time don't do no jobs. It just simply does not. No matter what we do, no matter what we plan, no matter what we hope, no matter what we dream, no matter what. Through our best efforts, through our best obstacles, through our best everything to try to slow time down, it does not. It will regardless. The cliche is that there's two certainties in this life, death and taxes. There's two things in this world that don't do no jobs, time and Mother Nature. Mother Nature ain't never lost a bout, and neither does time. So I don't fuck around with it. I pick and choose my battles. But make no mistake, if a battle is picked, you better be ready. Because that's that's a hill I'm willing to die on. And if I put that kind of effort into something, you are fucked. Straight up. I have relayed this message, only worded differently, several times in a lot of conversations that I've had with individuals. They come to me, they want to know, how do you do it? How are you able to just flip a switch like that? How are you able to just walk away from a scenario, walk away from a situation that anybody else would find every reason not to do that? Well, I understand why that's a thing. I understand why people will look at every reason not to do something. I just focus on the one on why I can and why I will. Because here's the other thing. I've got way too much self-respect to be anybody's punching bag ever again, to be anybody's doormat ever again. And people recognize that. Some of them have a fucking issue with it, but other people recognize that. And I'm not sitting here and saying, look, this is the blueprint of how you should conduct life. That is not it. That is not it. If I'm being honest with you, I would not suggest the exact trek that I've been on. I certainly wouldn't, because the other thing of it is, 90% of you couldn't fucking handle it. You would abandon it at step 1 or 2 because you just don't have the internal makeup, because you don't have the mindset. Once you get the mindset established, then anything's possible. Seriously. I'm looking to see who all has traffic is going up, which is a good sign here. I've got, looks like 3 on Facebook. Riverside is reporting 4 and 2 on YouTube. So, I mean, we're doing okay here. I'll be honest, I didn't think anybody would be tuning in. I figured this was just going to be recorded and uploaded to the RSS feed and everything was going great. If you have a question, you have a comment or anything like that, leave it on the Clouse to the Heart Facebook feed. Excuse me, where the video is showing. I see Mark Taylor, Dan Ferguson, Brian Jackson, Mary Fishwick. Appreciate all of you taking time out of your Saturday night. A couple of these I haven't seen in a minute, so it's good to see their names on there. So, so you hear, don't waste your time on shit that don't matter, because it's not, the end result's not going to change, and then you've wasted all that time and effort and energy in doing what? What? Coming soon to the PFC store. What are we doing right now? What are we doing right now? Why are you wasting so much time? Because there's going to be a moment where you look back and you're like, why did I waste so much time? I'm telling you now, stop. If any situation causes you any degree of dread on a level that is derailing your fundamental happiness, out of here. Just out of here. Done. I can do that. Now, people will say, oh, you just didn't care if you can just sever ties like that. No, it's actually the polar opposite. I cared too much. And make no mistake, it's not like I'm over here doing backflips and cartwheels because I had to sever ties with people. They were just deemed, this is not good for me. Their influence, their presence does not do me a damn bit of good. So what am I doing? It's rough, man. It's raw. I get it. But it's totally fucking worth it too, because the amount of drama and anxiety that immediately get taken out off the plate, immeasurable. Immeasurable. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy, but I will tell you that it's worth it. Another one that came down the pike this week. My friend Ashley actually posted this. She's been posting things on that pop up on Facebook where I'm like, geez, that's a good one. That's a show topic idea right there. But I want to look at this one for a moment. It says this: just because the past didn't turn out like you wanted it to doesn't mean your future can't be better than you ever imagined. Let me read that to you again. Just because the past didn't turn out like you wanted it to doesn't mean your future can't be better than you ever imagined. Why this resonated with me was the timing of it. Everybody has something in their past, at least one thing, some more than others, obviously, but we can all look back on our journeys, our past, our lives, and there's different things we wish we could do differently. There's things that we wish we could take back. There's things that it's like a blemish, right? It's like that one thing that you're like, if I never have to think about this ever again, dot, dot, dot. We all have something like that. Individually, it will determine how big of a chunk of your past does that particular scenario or circumstance represent. I can look back on a variety of different things in my journey and pinpoint, I s- it's not so much anymore, God, I wish I could redo that. It's that you pinpoint, that's where I messed up. It was at that moment, that's when things went off the rails and I just followed suit. But the thing about it is that with every less than ideal scenario or situation that we can look back on, not all that fondly, there is a lesson to be taken away from it. And as long as you don't repeat the same mistakes time and time and time again, it's going to be okay. However, if you keep doing the same shit over and over and over again, getting the same result, but expecting something different, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the textbook definition of insanity. I also can take a page out of what I just talked about and incorporate here in determining what's important and what's not. Who's important and who's not? Who am I going to allow to infiltrate the inner workings of my being, and who am I not? It does sound complicated. It can become overly complicated if you allow it to. And I think that's one of the most frustrating parts of talking to me. When people talk to me, I feel their frustration because they will spend 20 minutes laying out their whole scenario. And I mean, they go deep into the woods. They relay things to me that if I really shouldn't have any knowledge of, because it is on that level personally. But I take that shit so seriously because there's something that I'm doing that makes them feel comfortable enough in describing some of the most intimate details of a relationship I've ever heard. And I've heard some shit in my day, if I can be honest with you. Um, but they get frustrated because they'll spend 20 minutes laying this whole thing out, and I am dialed into what they're telling me. You have my attention. I am listening to you. And then when it's my turn to process what everything that I've heard, now they're looking for my response, my answer, the resolution, the idea, the something or another. And I will lay it out to them in 3 or 4 words, and then I'll just sit back. they'll look at me as if they're waiting for the other sentence to just pop out of my mouth. No, that's all I had to say about it. Well, how can that be? They would ask me. It's not that simple. Why? Explain to me why it's not that simple. And then this is when you start the hemming and hawing and this, that, and the other thing, because I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting, like, you came to me asking me for my advice. You came to me asking me for help. You came to me wanting my perspective, and you took the time to explain everything. My response was not nearly as detailed, and it sure as shit didn't take nearly as long to put out there as the initial scenario, because it doesn't have to be overly complicated. What it boils down to is how much are you willing to put yourself into where you're wanting to go, who you're wanting to be, because it's not going to be easy. Anybody who tells you that it's going to be are lying, or they have ulterior motives, or they're trying to figure out what it is that you want to hear, not what you need to hear. And we, all of us, every single person can look back on a scenario where we were met with something like that, where we should have been told what we needed to hear, not what we wanted to hear. I got into a pretty lengthy conversation yesterday about the difference between wants and needs and how that affects a fundamental mindset in anything that you're doing, professionally or personally. Now we can look back and we can say, oh my God, I had all these dreams, I had these goals, I had these aspirations, I had this. This is who I was going to be. Anybody who's listened to me for any length of time, I'll just give a Cliff Notes version here. But like, my dream was to be a professional wrestler. I've made no bones about that. Like, in my mind, from a very early age, I was going to the World Wrestling Federation. Well, it's WWE nowadays, but like, there was no other plan of attack for me. This is what I wanted, and nothing was going to derail me from that. Um, Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything on here. But like, nothing was. It was WWE or bust. Well, then the bust happened, and it's like, okay, do what now? I had to readjust my focus. I had to pivot to a new path, but still that kept me in the realm of the dream that I initially had as a 7 or 8 year old kid. My initial dreams in the wrestling business took a detour to the path that I was on that led me to a career in the business that lasted 28 years that I take a tremendous amount of pride in. So my initial goal was not met, but a better, more meaningful one was embarked upon and subsequently achieved. Just because it doesn't always pan out the way that you thought it would, doesn't mean that there's not something on the horizon that's where you are meant to be. You can incorporate that into virtually any aspect in your life. I look at my life. I look at everything that I have done, experienced, been through, been a part of, caused, been the cause of, and everything has been a step along the way. Because here's the one thing about me is I have always known from a very early age who I wanted to be. I just wasn't sure how to get there. Now, over the course of time, I have learned a lot of hard lessons. But I can sit here on October the 26th, going into the 27th shortly, in the year 2024, and tell anybody and everybody that I am on a path that is leading me to the greatest happiness I have ever known. Shit's trending in the right direction for the first time in a long time, like all of it at one time. Usually it's one aspect or another. It's never been all cylinders firing at one time. Yeah, I can't say that anymore because they're all firing. And that's why I have absolutely zero fucking problem coming on these airwaves every single week and just throwing this out there. This is what can be if you so choose. If you're willing to lace your boots up a little bit tighter, put on your big boy or big girl pants because we're going to work today. Because you're going to have to earn your happiness. It ain't going to be handed to you. You hear me? Anybody that just hands you anything can just as easily take it away from you. Fuck that. If anything is handed to me, I don't want it. I didn't earn it. And I don't know, I have the mentality I have to earn what I get, what I achieve. Otherwise, it ain't going to mean as much. So no, my answers are not always going to be the popular ones. My answers are not always going to be the easy. I don't do easy. Easy raises too many question marks. Hard, you force yourself into a check and balance type of scenario so that you protect yourself from the opportunity for any bullshit to come down the wire. We have one life here, man. And people are under the impression you have unlimited amount of time. You do not. You do not. The minute you come out, the hourglass of your life flips. Every grain that drops through is a moment of your life, a moment of your time, of your existence, of your place on this planet. Eventually, that last grain of sand drops, and it ain't always when we want it to be. So, what are you doing in that time between the time you come out and the time that last grain of sand drops? What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? If you look at it from that perspective, then you're going to start prioritizing what's really truly important in life and in turn what's not. And when you determine how much time and effort that you have put into your day-to-day, into your life that does not benefit you in the long run or does not bring you any degree of positivity, happiness, love, or anything along those lines to your life, you have a decision to make. You can continue wasting that time and effort on a situation, person, or entity that is not going to get you to where you want to be or allow you to be who you want to be. Or you can roll the fucking dice on yourself and actually stand up on your own 2 feet and take back what time you've got left. Because I'm here to tell you, when you are met with a situation where time is presented in a way where there is an end date in mind, it will change your entire perspective. Do not allow it to get to that point. Every single day that you wake up is a clean slate. Every single day that you wake up is a blessing. Because how many other people did not wake up today? How many of them are not going to wake up with you tomorrow? Eventually, there will be a day where you do not, where I do not, where they do not. You've heard me say a million times, and you'll hear me say it a million more. You got to maximize your minutes, man. You got to maximize your minutes, and you got to prioritize what is truly important in your life with the allotted time that you have. Anything that brings overwhelming feelings of drama, chaos, controversy, fear, heartbreak, as difficult as it is, man, you gotta sever ties. You gotta cut that weight off. You'd be surprised how much lighter you would feel. You'd be surprised how much further you would be able to go in life when you didn't have the weight of negativity pulling at your ankles, preventing you from going as far as you are capable of going. Now, that proverbial weight takes physical form of people in our lives, situations, and scenarios in a real life presence form. You have a decision to make, and that's okay because no one said it was easy. This is where egos get hurt, feelings get hurt. Oh, I had your back the entire time. No, you didn't. No, the fuck you didn't. You know how I know you didn't? Because the second I made the decision to cut cut you off, a couple 100 pounds just got lifted right off the gate. The body's a funny thing, man. It's going to tell you where what you need to do and where you need to be in its own little way. It's just up to you whether you acknowledge it or not. Now, what am I looking at here? Stand by. Give me 1 second here. I've got something's trying to come across my screen. Oh. Um, yes, Tony, I did. My friend Tony sent in a message, asked me if I had seen Sports Illustrated's top 20 professional wrestlers of all time list. I did actually just see that this afternoon. Um, any kind of list like that gets controversial. It's individualized. What's going to be on the top of my list isn't going to be on the top of a lot of other people's. When you're talking about 20 of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, how are you going to narrow that down and what are you basing that on? You know what I mean? But I will, just for context purposes, I did bring it up here. Let me run this down and we'll go from 20 to 1 real quick. Okay, just bear with me. 20, Becky Lynch. See, right out of the gate. Right out of the gate, you're wrong. You're wrong. Becky Lynch should not even be. Yeah, 19, Mick Foley. 18, Chris Jericho. 17, CM Punk. 16, Andre the Giant. Fuck off. 15, Randy Orton. Again, fuck off. See, this whole thing is just compromised. 14, Edge. 13, Roddy Piper. 12, Kurt Angle. 11, Macho Man Randy Savage. Fuck off. 10, Bruno Sammartino. 9, Bret Hitman Hart. 8, Shawn Michaels. 7, Triple H. 6, The Undertaker. 5, Roman Reigns. 4, John Cena. 3, The Rock. 2, Hulk Hogan. 1, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Becky Lynch. No. Edge. No. No. Randy Savage not in the top 10. What are we doing right now? What are we doing? I would my question would be what did you base this list on? You know, that would be my question. Now, let me see if there was one more thing I wanted to make mention of on here. More of a motivational thing. And I swore I wasn't going to go deep into a wrestling conversation, but then too, I also gave the open invite to anybody that wanted to come on the show. And if that's what they wanted to talk about, that's what we would have talked about. But I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Yeah. This just sums everything up. And I will use this as um, the last point of topic here tonight. And again, I do appreciate everybody that tuned in here. Uh, now that I've done this a couple times, now I have a better idea of what that format is probably going to look like, and I can plan better. So it's going to be more engaging, more entertaining. But the fact that I had several of you tuning in here tonight, like I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I really do appreciate that. But we're going to end it with this here tonight. You're going to piss a lot of people off when you start doing what's best for you. That's okay. Do it anyway. This hammers home for a number of reasons. There's one special soul that comes to mind when I think about this. When I read this, I'm like, I knew I was going to save this for a topic. I actually think I'm going to expand on this for an actual episode, long form, on the regular feed. You are going to piss a lot of people off when you start doing what's best for you. And so many people, when they get that first hint of resistance, that first pushback, they'll abandon that shit faster than anybody that was sitting on the Titanic, man. Like they'll hop off that so goddamn fast because they're scared. They're scared of the repercussions. They're scared of how it's going to make other people feel. Now, if it's your children involved, that's one thing. Obviously, that has to take a lot of more into consideration. But if you're looking at it and if you are basing your decisions, your course of action based on what other people may feel because you are trying to do something that's good for you, I understand that mentality because I lived that mentality for the longest time. But here's what I've always found. Always. The people that I took the time and effort to actually care about their feelings in relation to what I was doing wouldn't give a fuck about me if the roles were reversed. Sometimes you gotta look at it like that. Is this something that's going to um is this something that would be reciprocated. Not a lot of people can say that. I am an advocate for living your best life. I am an advocate for using your allotted time here to be the best version of yourself and be damned what has to happen in order for that to be a thing. Because there is nothing will ever go 100% smooth. There's always going to be a wrinkle somewhere. The question is, can that be, is it big enough to where it keeps you from being who and what you want to be or where you want to be, with who you want to be in some cases? I can understand the argument that it would be easier to just keep on the track that you are, and you are willing to keep your happiness, your well-being on the side burner. You'll get to it if there's time. Fuck that. That is no way to live. I know you think you're doing the right thing, especially when there's kids involved. I'm doing it for the kids. Not a more admirable trait. But just because you have kids doesn't mean you have to stop living. Just because you had kids doesn't mean you have to stop being who you are. Just because you had kids doesn't mean you have to stop being happy. And that some of your happiness doesn't all have to be revolved around the creation of your children and the lives that you brought into this world. You have every fucking right to live your life too, to focus on what makes you happy, because I've said this a million times on the podcast. If you ain't good with you, you ain't going to be worth a fuck to anybody else. You can play it off for a long time. Some people can. But if they were being 100% honest, at the person that they look at in the mirror is not a happy individual. There's aspects of happiness. They'll drive and they'll put so much happiness into anything centered around their children. They will trick their minds into thinking that they are truly a happy individual because they're feeding off that from their kids. But are you happy? Are you a happy person? Are you the best version of yourself? And if the answer is no, my question is why? What do we have to do to make that thing? Yeah, going to be difficult. Yep. Going to hurt feelings. Yep. Going to piss people off. Yep. You're going to be the villain in a lot of stories. But here's the thing, man. That story don't matter. That story is the equivalent of a B-rated movie that airs on a UHF station at 3 in the morning. Nobody gives a fuck. It's there, but nobody gives a fuck. It doesn't move the needle. You have every right to be happy. You have every right to embark on a life that brings you the opportunity to be the best version of yourself. And don't ever let anybody else tell you otherwise. Because if they tell you otherwise, they have ulterior motives for you, for your intentions, for what you bring to their life. They don't care about what you want. They don't care about how you feel. They don't care about any of that shit. That's what that means. They're more invested in what you can do for them, how you make them feel. And for the longest time, they can put up the facade that they're invested, they're interested, they care, until they get what they want, and then the real version of them comes out. At that point, you're stuck. And that's a word that fucking triggers me. I don't mind telling you. The word stuck, I'm stuck. I'm just stuck. No, you're not. Seems like it. I understand why it seems like it. for a lot of scenarios that I have been privy to, but you're really not. It's just very difficult to pull yourself up and out. Sometimes people, they just don't have it in them. It isn't worth it enough to put in that effort. Meanwhile, the greatest opportunities for them to be the best versions of themselves are slowly but surely going away. Because it goes back to that whole time thing, it don't stop. So the longer you're trying to figure it out, the more this thing is moving away from you. Don't let it get out of sight because that will be your biggest regret that you have. Damn, I should have done this. Should have done that. Should have listened to that guy that was on fucking Facebook or YouTube at 11 o'clock on a random Saturday night. I should have listened to that guy. He may have had a nugget of knowledge. Experience is a funny thing, man. There's no substitute for it. I don't just come on here and talk about things because I think it sounds cute coming out of my mouth. Not the case. Not the case at all. But what I can tell you is that through the damnedest storms, man, once you get through that, that sun don't shine no brighter. And where I'm at here today, that sun shines on me all day, every day. I'm a happy dude. I'm the happiest I've ever been, if I can be honest. That's not to say there's not scenarios and influences that are trying to derail that. I just don't allow it, and that drives people nuts. I just don't give a fuck. That's what it boils back down to. I have an inner circle. They're there for a reason. That's what I care about. That's what I focus on. Anybody else outside the rings of that sounds like a you problem. And I would really suggest you get good with whatever it is you got to get good with because you're wasting a tremendous amount of time and effort. And for what? What are we doing? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start winding this down. I certainly appreciate everybody that tuned in here tonight live on social media, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, or here on Riverside.fm. We are going to do more of these, I think. We'll plan them ahead a little bit better. We'll get more of a structured thing to it. But if you have any questions or comments or show topic ideas, if you want to be a guest on the show, you have a story that you would like to tell, there's a couple of guests that have reached out over the last few months that have expressed interest in coming on to the show to tell their stories. My buddy Jeff is one of them. He has a pretty involved story that centers around adoption, and I feel like that's going to be something that we're going to make happen here in the next couple of weeks. Get him on the show and let him tell his story. But if you have anything that you would like to talk about, that's what this network is all about. We give a voice to the voiceless. We have a platform to be heard. Voices are meant to be heard. And that's what we're all about here. So if there's something that you want to talk about, let us know. You can send us a DM on the Clouse to the Heart Facebook page, PFC Network Facebook page, clousetotheheart@gmail.com, or pfcnetwork.net. And with that, head on over. You have a couple more days to head over to the online store to check out the Halloween inspired gear because it goes away at the end of this week. And we switch over to the holiday lineup. And like I like Halloween and I appreciate Halloween, but I can't wait to get past Halloween so that I can launch my Christmas shit. I've only been sitting on it for a couple of months now, Not that there was like anything like, oh my God, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Ain't nothing like that, but like I took a lot of time and pride into designing this kind of stuff. So looking forward to it. Plus, the holidays are right around the corner, and I flourish at that time. So with that, I appreciate every single one of you. Go out this week, be awesome to yourselves and to each other. We'll see you next time on the Clouse to the Heart podcast, the flagship show of the PFC Entertainment Network, or Clouse to the Heart After Hours Live on Facebook, YouTube, and Riverside.fm.